Good morning, Napa Valley Unitarian Universalists, and welcome to our online worship. I'm Reverend Dr. Leisa Huyck, and I'm your parish minister, and with me this morning as your celebrant is Jungerman. Each week, we gather to connect with each other and to pay attention to both the beauty and the brokenness of our shared life on earth. We gather to be part of something bigger than ourselves and to explore new relationships and new ways of being. Today, we gather to celebrate our interdependence and to learn about the flaws in the foundation of this nation. As James Baldwin, African-American activist and writer, once said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Let us face together that which needs to be changed." Now, let us center ourselves through music.
Each Sunday, we join Unitarian Universalists all over the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith. You're welcome to light a chalice of your own at home or just a candle in a bowl as I speak these words from Leisa Doege. Apologies if that's mispronounced. Why a flaming chalice, the question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer. A cup of blessings overflowing. A cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst. A cup of wine for celebration and dedication. The flame of truth, the fire of purification. Oil for anointing, healing. Out of chaos, fear, and horror, this was the symbol crafted a generation ago. So may it be for us in these days of uncertainty, fear, sorrow, and rage, and a light to warm our souls and guide us home. Now, please join in singing Circle Round for Freedom, number 155.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison. children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
I invite you now into a moment of receptivity and reflection as we share the joys and sorrows of this community. We make sacred the milestones of our lives when we share them with each other. We have here a bowl of water and some stones. If you'd like to share your joy or sorrow with all here, you can type it into the chat. If you have a joy or sorrow or even just a concern in your heart that you don't need to share with all here, type the word stone in the chat, and Reverend Leisa will place a stone in the bowl for you.
I place one final stone in the bowl in honor of all those joys and sorrows that remain in the silence of our hearts, because they're too tender to share. When we share each other's joys and sorrows, we weave a web of love and care that lifts and supports us all. Now, let's go deeper. I invite you to get comfortable wherever you are, whether it's in a chair, on a sofa, on the floor, wherever you are. Put some part of your body on the floor to feel your connection to the earth right through that floor to the living soil beneath. Pull your shoulders up as far toward your ears as you can, and then drop them and shake all that out. Receive a breath from the living green beings of this earth. Receive in, and then exhale back to those living green beings. Receive a second breath in, and then out. A third breath in, and then out. Now, hear these words. Spirit of life, mystery beyond all understanding. Now is the time when fog and wind dance with the sun, whipping up whitecaps on the bay. Young swans are growing real feathers, and the wild oats have let loose their seeds. Zucchini plants are taking over the gardens, and the juice of apricots and peaches delights our tongues. Summer has fully arrived. Our nation celebrated its birth yesterday, and also its highest ideals. That all people are created equal, that all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. High ideals indeed, if we could only live them. Spirit of life, help us live these truths which we hold to be self-evident. That another's sorrow is my sorrow, that another's joy is my joy, that none can be happy at the expense of others, that each is free only when all are free, that our lives are held together in a greater life, that of our whole blue-green planet. Help us live these truths, that we might all be free. Blessed be. Let us join now in a time of silence. The music will bring us out into our song, This Is My Song. Our reading this morning comes from our great Buddhist teacher, Thich Nhat Hahn. If you are a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there will be no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow, and without trees, we cannot make paper. The cloud is essential for the paper to exist. If the cloud is not here, the sheet of paper cannot be here either. So we can say that the cloud and the paper inter-are. If we look into this sheet of paper even more deeply, we can see the sunshine in it. If the sunshine is not there, the forest cannot grow. In fact, nothing can grow. Even we cannot grow without sunshine. And so we know that the sunshine is also in this sheet of paper. The paper and the sunshine inter-are. And if we continue to look, we can see the logger who cut the tree and brought it to the mill to be transformed into paper. And we see the wheat. We know the logger cannot exist without his daily bread, and therefore the wheat that became his bread is also in this sheet of paper. And the logger's father and mother are in it too. Looking even more deeply, we can see we are in it too. The sheet of paper is part of our perception. Your mind is here and mine is also. So we can say that everything is in here with this sheet of paper. You cannot point out one thing that is not here. Time, space, the earth, the rain, the minerals in the soil, the sunshine, the cloud, the river, the heat, everything coexists with this sheet of paper. To be is to interbe. You cannot just be by yourself alone. You have to interbe with every other thing. As thin as this sheet of paper is, it contains everything in the universe in it. So, how are you feeling about this country of ours today? Did you feel up to celebrating its birth yesterday? I'll tell you how I'm feeling. I love this country. I love its landscapes, its wildlife, its enormous variety of ecosystems. I love the variety of people and cultures here. I love our ideals of freedom and equality and justice. This is my home, the country where my heart is. And because I love this country, in the past few years, I have been feeling enraged. I've been feeling heartbroken and grief-stricken. We seem to be hell-bent on destroying our beautiful lands, cleansing our nation of all cultural difference, and completely trashing our ideals. I'm also feeling afraid. Never in my lifetime, which includes the end of the Cold War and the terrors of the Reagan years, has this world faced the extreme level of danger we're facing now. If we in this nation don't immediately mobilize every resource we have to convert from fossil fuels to renewable energy, our planet will be unfit for human life within 50 to 100 years, within the lifetime of my own children. But it's hard to work on that right now when he who must not be named and his rhetoric of hate occupy so much of our national attention. We find ourselves having instead to constantly mobilize to stop fascism and reclaim basic human rights we thought we had already won. Do you think that's an accident? I'm not suggesting conspiracies, although they may be afoot. I'm suggesting that the extreme upsurge in hatred and violence and the extreme destruction we're wreaking on our planet are deeply interconnected. There's an old story that goes something like this. Once upon a time, there was a little town next to a river. One day, a man saw a baby floating down the river, and he ran in and pulled the baby out and called for help. No sooner had the man handed the baby over to somebody else when another baby floated down, and no sooner had he rescued that one when yet another floated along. Soon the townspeople were organizing a brigade. Some people would catch the babies as they floated by, others would take them to shore, and still others would find food and housing and clothing for them. The townspeople became very efficient. But after some time went by, two people were seen leaving the town. "Hey, where are you going?" the townspeople cried. "We need all the help we can get." The two replied, "Someone has to go find out what's happening upstream." Today, there are babies floating everywhere, both figuratively and literally. Climate change, war, poverty, mass shootings, hatred and violence toward brown and black people and gay and trans people, toward women and Muslims and homeless people. The list goes on and on. Many people are working as hard as they can to rescue babies, to care for the hungry and the homeless, the victims of abuse and war, to restore ecosystems. This is essential work, and if it's your work, thank you for doing it. And it is also essential to go upstream. It's essential to find out the causes of these interconnected crises. How can we begin to address them? How can we begin to heal our planet and its peoples? Well, this is what I've spent my entire adult life trying to understand. And lucky for you, I can distill more than 35 years of study into just a few minutes of sermonating. What I've learned is this. Western culture is built on a binary, dualistic understanding of the world in which separation and power over are the main themes. Plato and Aristotle believed that the basic unit of human life was the solitary individual, separate from all others. They called this theory atomism. The ancient Hebrews believed that God created humans in the image of the divine and then separated Adam from all other living things and gave him dominion over them. Western philosophers, theologians, and scientists have spent centuries describing separations between heaven and earth, sacred and profane, mind and body, light and dark, order and chaos, purity and sexuality, with the second term always inferior to the first. The earth or nature, women and dark-skinned people, anyone and everything not white and male, were equated with each other and all equated with darkness, sexuality, and chaos. All were to be subdued and used for the benefit of mankind, meaning white men of European descent, of course. All were considered other and relegated to the status of it in Martin Buber's terms, which permits separation between oneself and another instead of the you or thou that makes relationship possible. Embedded in this dualistic understanding of the world is the notion of conflict between opposites, not the kind of constructive conflict that engenders healthy mutual growth, but the destructive kind that keeps us locked in winner-take-all competitions. The kind in which a solitary self, alone and afraid, is pitted against everyone and everything else in the world in a battle for survival. Remember your literature classes in high school, how the three basic plots revolved around conflict: man against man, man against nature, man against himself. Someone always won or lost. I was one of those pesky high school students who kept raising my hand and asking, what about women? Why do we use man to refer to all people? And why does a plot always have to involve conflict? Isn't love an important story? What about cooperation? The teachers would sigh and roll their eyes. That's not what we're talking about right now, they would say. You're missing the point. But I wasn't missing the point. I was making a different point. As I would later learn, this construct of a fearful, solitary self in competition with all else for scarce resources, with divine permission to exercise dominion over the world, is what formed the basis of the brand new United States of America. When our forefathers wrote the Constitution, they relied heavily on the ideas of John Locke and Adam Smith, who borrowed directly from Plato and Aristotle. In the 17th century, Locke proposed a theory he called social atomism, in which each individual acts solely in his own interest. These interests conflict with the interests of others and require the consumption of inert resources. Therefore, society should set up a social contract in order to make sure that individuals respect each other's rights. In the 18th century, Adam Smith applied the idea of social atomism to economics, proposing that the most efficient market would result from individuals acting in their own self-interest. These theories appealed to men like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams because in their world, people were not free to act in their own self-interest. Instead, they acted from obligation to relationships based on dominion or power over. God had absolute power over everything. Kings had absolute power over their lands and peoples. Men had absolute power over women and children. Whites had absolute power over people of color. Our forefathers did not like having to submit to the king. They were men of wealth and privilege and brilliant minds, and they wanted the freedom to determine their own lives. So much the better if acting in their own interests brought about the best situation for everyone. So what kind of social contract could they set up to make it happen? Well, for some years, they had been observing and admiring the Iroquois League, the form of government of the Haudenosaunee people. This was a representative democracy, and with every person, including women, having an equal voice. All people were considered equal, and that system of governance explicitly recognized interdependence. The Iroquois League considered the impacts of every decision on their non-human relatives, and they considered the impacts on the next 7 generations. Alas, our forefathers, like all people, were limited by their own frame of reference. So the only part of this system of governance they could grasp was the idea of representative democracy, in which each man had an equal say. They could not grasp the importance of considering men and women as equals, or considering persons of different skin colors as equal to each other, or considering non-human beings as important as human ones. They certainly did not grasp the importance of considering the impacts of their decisions on the 7th generation. But they took what they did understand and used it to form the new nation. They declared that all men were created equal and ought to be guaranteed certain rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then they made the free market economy the foundation of the new nation, with slavery and genocide as its building blocks. With a beginning like this, no wonder we still struggle. Our most basic national story is that the self is all alone in a dangerous world, and its survival depends upon harming others. There is a wound here that needs healing. Only if we heal that wound can we go on to heal all the other terrible wounds that have sprung from it. The racism, the genocide, the inequality, the rape culture, and more. How do we do that? By changing the story. By changing our understanding of the nature of the self and its relationship to other people and the rest of the universe. We must unlearn old habitual thought patterns and relearn new ones. So, how do we need to understand the self? In answer, I invite you to try to stop breathing. Can you do it? How about eating or drinking water? Would you be able to do that? Think of all that is necessary for you to take a breath and all that happens in your nerves and muscles and lungs and bloodstream when you do. Isn't that amazing? Now look at your hand. Is there a dark line delineating the boundary between your skin and the atmosphere in the room? There is not, because your skin and the atmosphere interpenetrate one another, exchanging atoms and molecules at a rate too fast for your eyes to see. We are embedded in and utterly dependent upon the ecosystems in which we live. We inter-are with them. There is no separation, and there can be no separation. Not only are we radically interdependent with all other nature, we also inter-are with all other humans. An individual can neither exist nor survive just by their self. Not one of us here gave birth to ourselves or fed ourselves or changed our own diapers. If babies are not held and spoken to by caregivers, they die. The basic unit of human life is not an individual. It is a relationship within a system of other relationships. In fact, it's complete nonsense to even speak of a basic unit of human life. All reality is composed of systems within systems within systems. We are sustained by a web of relationships so vast we cannot even comprehend it. Unitarian Universalists covenant to affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we're part. We sometimes struggle a bit to understand what that really means in religious terms, but our 6 sources give us many rich ways to engage with it. Over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha explained that we and the world in which we live are formed together in relationship with all that is and ever has been. Therefore, we are continuously co-creating the world by our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. Early Christians put it a bit more simply when they said, "As you sow, so shall you reap." Western physics reached the same conclusion as the Buddha just this past century. As Maria Mitchell, a Unitarian and early American astronomer, wrote, "Small as is our whole system compared with the infinitude of creation, brief as is our life compared with the cycles of time, we are so tethered to the beautiful dependencies of law that not only the sparrow's fall is felt to the uttermost bound, but the vibrations set in motion by the words we utter reach through all space, and the tremor is felt through all time." And then there's process theology, a union of mysticism and physics, which says all things are interconnected in a moving, flowing, dancing whole, a process of creative love ever becoming. The name process theologians give this living whole, this moving love of which all things are part, is God. We might say then that the universe is the body of God. As pagan theologian Stark writes, "Earth Mother, Star Mother, you who are called by 1,000 names, may all remember we are cells in your body and dance together." A common thread running through all of these understandings of the interdependent web of being is that every single thing we think and say and do has an effect on the whole of which we are part. We are all co-creating the world we live in every moment. We must take care in choosing our thoughts, our words, and our deeds because the universe holds their consequences for all time. This means that as a nation, we will continue to struggle with the consequence of slavery and genocide and misogyny and ecological destruction until we decide to heal them. The good news is that interbeing means we can heal them. We have enormous power, power to and power with. We have power to work with one another to co-create a world that is healthy. We have the power to recognize that the evil things in our world, those things that we are taught are permanent and inevitable, the things that require us to view ourselves as isolated individuals in conflict with nature and each other, are only as real and as contingent as a cloud. Meaning they are real and they have effects, but they depend for their existence on a certain set of conditions. We have the power to change those conditions. More than that, we have a responsibility to change them. But how? What can just one person do? As Kathleen Dean Moore says, stop being just one person. Join with others. Whatever aspect of our interrelated crises you're most concerned about, there's a group of people doing something about it. Find out who they are and join them. Be careful to join groups who understand interbeing, who understand that every problem we have is interrelated with every other problem we have, and are working together with other groups to solve them. The Poor People's Campaign is a good example. 2 weeks ago, the Poor People's Campaign held the Mass Poor People's Assembly and Moral March on Washington. The goal, according to the campaign's website, was to call for a revolution of values to save the soul and heart of our democracy. The political and economic systems in the U.S. are plagued by the interlocking injustices of systemic racism, poverty, militarism and war economy, ecological devastation, and a distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism. Somebody's hurting our people. It's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Thousands of people of every color, kind, and class from all over the country participated in the event. In his closing speech, African-American minister Reverend Dr. William Barber Jr., one of the co-leaders of the campaign, said that the media keep asking, "What one demand is your top priority?" His answer, "We are not asking for one thing. We are demanding that this nation reconstruct everything." And this is why I'm feeling something else about our country today. I'm feeling hopeful. I'm feeling hopeful because people of many colors and cultures and economic classes, many genders and sexual orientations are coming together in our love for our earth and her peoples. We are coming together in a shared understanding of interbeing, and we are making real change. So let us acknowledge our power. Let us take up our responsibility. Let us declare interdependence. Say it with me. We declare interdependence. We declare interdependence. And let us go forth and make America beautiful.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This congregation depends entirely upon the generosity of its members and friends. All that we give in time, talent, and treasure is what sustains this community and makes it not just a sanctuary for us to return to for spiritual nourishment, but an oasis from which we can go out into the world carrying the waters of life. Each fourth Sunday, our congregation donates to a local organization that shares our values. Since we were visiting the gathering and service at the UUA's General Assembly last week, which was the fourth Sunday in June, today we will take the Share the Plate offering instead. Today's organization is the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, and here to speak about the work of this organization is Madeline Hernandez.
Hello, my name is Madeline Hernandez, and I am the North Bay Regional Director and Staff Attorney for the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, or IIBA's Napa office. IIBA is a nonprofit organization that provides legal immigration services, education, and outreach to the community. Here in Napa, a large part of our immigration legal services is helping individuals apply for U.S. citizenship. The way that we assisted pre-pandemic was by having monthly workshops, many of which were held at the Unitarian Universalist Church, which we greatly appreciate. During these workshops, we would have volunteers sit with clients to help them fill out their applications, and then we would submit them on their behalf. Many of the church members were also volunteers. Our clients really appreciate all of the assistance that you have provided. Over the last 6 years, we've been able to file just over 2,000 citizenship applications. We have just over 1,500 new citizens in Napa. That's 1,500 new voters. Yay! Apart from citizenship, we also help individuals apply for DACA, help apply for other family members, and protect families from separation by assisting with deportation defense. Because we were so concerned about the Supreme Court decision about DACA, we really focused on DACA over the last 6 months, and we were able to submit 209 DACA renewal applications. Luckily, the Supreme Court made a good decision. We have continued to provide services during this pandemic remotely, which has been really, really nice for our clients and for us as well. We wouldn't be able to provide any of the services that we do without volunteers like yourselves and without donations. So I want to thank Lenore Hirsch for nominating us for the Share the Plate, as well as the church for allowing IIBA to be the recipient of the Share the Plate. All of the donations will go directly to legal immigration services and helping our community members. As many of you may know, the citizenship application costs $725 and the DACA application costs $495. So your donations will really help our clients. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madeline. If our YouTube page has been updated by the time this service airs, you can donate to the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area via Share the Plate by looking for a donate link below this video on our YouTube page. Or you can go the old-fashioned way to our website at nvuu.org and click on the donate button there. Or you can do it the really old-fashioned way and send a check to us at NVUU 1625 Salvador Avenue in Napa 94558. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you for your many gifts. All you give and all you do are vital to building the beloved community in this region and beyond. Now, if you have announcements or invitations into community, I invite you to come over to our Zoom hour after the service, and you can share them there. In closing, I offer you this prayerful reflection. Spirit of life, breath of our breath, moving source of all we know. Help us awaken to the beauty of our interbeing and feel in the depths of our soul the love that holds us all. May we find that in so doing we must act for the common good and help reconstruct everything. May we let the power of co-creation move through us in each moment as we become the change we wish to see. In your many names we pray. Amen, and blessed be. Now let's join in singing our closing hymn, number 121, We'll Build the Land. The words are adapted from a passage in the Hebrew Bible said to record the words of the prophet Isaiah. The prophets of old were those who spoke truth to power, the ones who called for a reorganization of their society so that all might have what they needed. The prophets called for justice, as they still do, and as Dr. Cornel West says, justice is what love looks like in public. The words we'll sing now are thousands of years old. but they might have been spoken today. We'll build a land. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts out into the world until we meet again. And now, people of this beloved community, Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Let us use our power well to make that destiny beautiful. Go shining. Blessed be."